Greetings, history seekers. Welcome to our channel. Today, we explore the Mongol Empire. Born in the freezing, unforgiving steppes, an outcast boy named Temujin survived by scavenging. Yet this starving nomad would eventually forge the largest contiguous land empire in history. Rivers turned deep red with crimson stains, and wealthy cities turned to ashes by his fearsome cavalry. How did a scattered group of nomads bring the civilized world to its knees? Let us uncover this history. The harsh Eurasian steppe was a bitter wasteland of endless freezing winds and constant tribal warfare. Nomadic tribes lived a violent, isolated life, vanquishing one another for grazing lands and sheep. The outside civilized world completely ignored these warring factions, viewing them as merely savages.
Yet, within this brutal chaos, a young boy was forced to grow up amidst bitter betrayal and deep hunger.
His father was poisoned by rivals, leaving young Temujin and his family cast out to perish cold. To survive, they scavenged for wild roots and hunted small rodents, living like hunted animals on vast plains. He endured captivity as a slave with a wooden collar, but the fire in his eyes never faded. Instead of breaking his spirit, these hardships forged a ruthless and highly calculated warrior. According to old records, he slowly mastered the dark art of political alliance and deceit. He began uniting fractured tribes, breaking old noble traditions to reward merit and loyalty. Step by step, his army of outcasts grew stronger, sweeping across the plains like an unstoppable mighty storm. He vanquished rival chieftains without mercy, absorbing their warriors into his own massive ranks. The endless cycle of nomadic conflict was finally broken by a man with a fearsome vision. In the year 1206, the united tribes gathered by the river and officially named him Genghis Khan. This legendary title meant the universal ruler, supreme leader of all who lived in felt tents. He had achieved the impossible, completely uniting the scattered people of the eternal sky. But this new nation was a massive military machine composed of fierce men who only knew endless war. A united steppe meant they could not raid each other for wealth, creating a dangerous economic crisis. To survive and maintain loyalty, this hungry war machine had to be fed with plunder of foreign lands. Genghis Khan turned his terrifying gaze southward, toward the wealthy and fortified realms of China. The great Jin dynasty, with towering walls and millions of soldiers, seemed impossible for nomads to break. But the Mongols brought a deadly new way of fighting that the civilized world had never witnessed before. Their light cavalry moved with terrifying speed, communicating through an intricate system of flags. Every warrior carried multiple composite bows, firing armor-piercing arrows at a full gallop. They perfected the feigned retreat, pretending to flee in panic to lure arrogant foes into deadly traps. The powerful Jin army was completely outmaneuvered and vanquished, leaving the plains covered in fallen men. This stunning victory brought them tremendous wealth, revealing the reality of unstoppable power. If you were a starving outcast, would you embrace brutal violence to survive? Share your thoughts in the comments. The Mongol machine was awake, and Genghis Khan knew expansion was the only way to keep peace at home. In the early 1210s, his cavalry surged outward, crushing the Western Siar dynasty with brutal force. But the nomads faced a problem. They were masters of the open field, but knew nothing about strict siege warfare. To solve this, Genghis Khan captured Chinese engineers, forcing them to build massive catapults to break down walls. He adapted quickly, combining nomadic cavalry speed with the most advanced siege technology. The Mongols did not just defeat armies, they dismantled nations, absorbing useful knowledge and precious skills. Having secured the east, Genghis Khan sought peaceful trade with the wealthy Khwarezmian Empire in the west. He sent a large caravan of merchants bearing expensive gifts to establish a profitable, friendly bond. But the arrogant governor of Otrar seized the goods and eliminated the envoys, sparking a fierce war. According to historians, this single act of foolish pride unleashed the greatest devastation ever seen. Genghis Khan was furious, viewing this betrayal as a direct insult to his divine power from the sky. He gathered over 100,000 elite cavalrymen, crossing the mountains for merciless vengeance. The mighty Khwarezmian Empire, renowned for golden cities and armies, was unprepared for this fearsome storm. The Mongols struck with the precision of a deadly hunting pack, destroying enemy cities one by one. They used terror as a weapon, offering a simple choice: surrender quickly or face absolute ruin. Those who surrendered without a fight were spared and heavily taxed, while any resistance was met with cruelty. Entire populations were herded out of their beloved homes, used as human shields to absorb deadly arrows. The grand city of Bukhara, a bright center of Islamic scholarship, was captured and ruthlessly looted. Genghis Khan rode his horse directly into the great sacred mosque, declaring himself the true punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me, he told the trembling crowd. The psychological impact was devastating, shattering local morale and causing mass panic. Samarkand, the heavily fortified jewel of the empire, fell in merely 5 days as defenders gave up. But the worst fate was reserved for Urgench, the capital, which resisted fiercely and faced the wrath of the Khans. The siege lasted for many grueling months, with brutal street-to-street fighting that frustrated Mongol forces. When the city finally fell, the horrific devastation that followed was beyond human comprehension. To flood the ruined city, they diverted the mighty river, ensuring that Urgench would never rise again. The Khwarezmian Shah fled in utter disgrace, dying on a tiny island while his glorious empire fell. Was this extreme brutality a necessary tactic, or just a tyrant's madness? Share your thoughts down below. The true cost of this expansion was paid entirely in oceans of sorrow and the ashes of ancient realms. As they pushed into Russia and Europe, the scale of systematic conquest became increasingly fearsome. Ancient texts record that the vibrant city of Nishapur was totally destroyed after a prince was struck down. Genghis Khan's grieving daughter ordered that every living creature in the city be vanquished forever. The remains of fallen men, women, and children were meticulously stacked into pyramids outside the walls. The Mongols used a calculated psychology of horror, ensuring their dark reputation preceded them. Paralyzed by the dread of absolute annihilation, many cities surrendered quickly without a fight. To the medieval world, these invaders seemed like divine punishment, earning the title Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Magnificent irrigation systems of ancient Persia were destroyed, turning fertile lands into deserts anew. Scholars estimate that millions perished in this fierce onslaught, altering the demographic landscape of the realm. Some historians even suggest that the massive depopulation cooled the global climate by letting forests grow. Behind the advancing Mongol vanguard, a chilling silence fell over devastated lands that once teemed with life. The mighty Khans did not care about the grand architecture or culture of the people they ruthlessly conquered. To them, a flattened city simply meant more open grazing land for their vast herds of horses and nomadic life. Yet, amidst this apocalyptic destruction, the seeds of a connected new world were planted in sacrifice. Genghis Khan demanded absolute submission, but offered protection to those who faithfully served his empire. He established the Yasa, a strict code of laws applied equally to all, uniting the empire under one rule. This legal framework guaranteed religious tolerance, a progressive concept for such a violent and dark era. Artisans, scholars, and engineers were spared from the conquest and relocated to serve the mighty war machine. This forced migration led to a massive exchange of technology and ideas across the vast Asian steppe. Gunpowder from China made its way to Europe, a terrible invention that would forever change human warfare. But as Genghis Khan aged, the weight of his endless conquests began to take a heavy toll on the deeply feared ruler. In 1227, the great conqueror died under mysterious circumstances during his final campaign. His loyal soldiers carried his body back to the steppe, silencing anyone who witnessed the secret procession. To this day, the exact location of his hidden tomb remains one of the greatest mysteries in archaeology. Though the founder was gone, the monstrous empire he built continued to expand under the command of his ambitious sons. They would push the violent frontiers even further, solidifying the Mongol grip on the shattered civilized world. In the mid-13th century, a deep silence settled over the vastly traumatized Eurasian continent. From the devastation, a strange new era finally emerged, the unprecedented period of Mongol peace. For the very first time in history, a single authority controlled the vast land from China to Eastern Europe. The legendary Silk Road, once fractured by warring kingdoms, was now unified and protected by fearsome Mongol riders. It was said that a maiden carrying a sack of gold could safely walk from one end of the empire to the very other. This extreme security sparked a massive boom in global trade as caravans fully loaded with silk crossed the barren deserts. Cultural exchange flourished in the shadow of the sword as European merchants traveled to the mighty Great Khan's court. Marco Polo, the famous Venetian explorer, marveled at the immense wealth and advanced systems of this massive realm. The Mongols introduced a highly efficient postal system, using relay stations to deliver news with blinding speed. Paper money, once confined only to China, was strictly enforced across the empire to standardize global trade. The world was forcefully integrated, laying groundwork for the highly interconnected global economy. Yet, beneath this prosperous surface, ghosts of the vanquished millions whispered softly through the ruins of conquered cities. The safety of these booming trade routes was purchased with the innocent lives of entire erased nations in time. Fierce warriors who once burned the earth now carefully patrolled the roads to protect the many wealthy merchants. Deep in the harsh steppe, the newly built capital of Karakorum became a brilliant center of the world. Christians, Muslims, and Buddhists gathered peacefully at the grand court of the mighty universal ruler. However, this incredible golden age was an uneasy peace, enforced strictly through absolute terror. Any spark of rebellion or defiance was instantly crushed, with the exact same merciless brutality. Spanning from the Pacific Ocean to the borders of Europe, the empire was unimaginably massive. They successfully bridged the isolated East and West, reshaping human history forever in time. The devastating shock of their archers forced global armies to radically change their formations and tactics. To the broken world, this terrifying empire seemed completely invincible and truly eternal. A once forgotten nomadic tribe of starving outcasts had successfully conquered the entire known globe. The grand vision of a young boy on the freezing steppes had become a truly horrifying reality. For several decades, this fragile stability held the massive continents in a tight iron grip. However, the seeds of their own destruction were secretly planted deep within their royal bloodline. As the Mongol Empire reached the absolute peak of its glorious power, dark cracks began to quickly form. This colossal and terrifying war machine made the entire world bow down in absolute submission. But why did these undefeated conquerors suddenly collapse and shatter? Find out in our next episode. The Mongols left behind a world united by trade, but built entirely on the bones of countless victims. Was he a visionary leader, or just a ruthless tyrant? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this journey, please remember to like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel.